It's all fear motivated for sure. Yeah, the whole thing. And there was a time I think during a sermon where the leader was like, "Do we use fear tactics here?" He goes, "Yeah, we do." And I thought, "Well, that's weird." At that time for me, I was, this is when they had deemed COVID-19 as a great tribulation, as a fulfillment of one of the events that were happening in Revelation, right? And people obviously had questions because it wasn't making sense. They were like, isn't there supposed to be the 144,000, which is the ultimate goals? You want to be the sealed 144,000, and then there's a great multitude that come. And so, but the ultimate goal is the 144,000. The sealed 144,000 is what people blood, sweat, and tears go into studying every night, trying to pass these exams, all sorts of things, right? And so the sacrifice that people make, and there was a bit of a back and forth, and it wasn't like clearly explained. And to this day, and I'm pretty sure in the next coming years, they won't release the names of the 144,000 because that's the carrot in front of the horse. Who's going to keep working that hard and sacrificing everything if they're told it's already been fulfilled and the rest of you guys are a great multitude? It's just not as appealing anymore. People are going to be lazy, not want to work, and sacrifice everything anymore. And so that was their biggest thing. But the whitewashed tombs and just looking appealing on the outside was the ultimate goal. They would try and invite these world leaders to these events. And these events that they hold in the DC area, they would invite people and they would say, there's all this press that's coming. And mind you, the entire audience is the congregation members. So this is all like, at times you just feel kind of silly. You're like, is this all like a charade thing? But it's all for show. It's pictures they take to post online. It's pictures to say, look what we've done, right? And you actually don't have any information, even like while you're there as a church member, what happens to that ongoing? You've just kind of done your job, and then they take that and then they may air it to the international churches and say, look what God is doing in the DMV, right? And it's like, wow. And then they do the same thing. Like it's this cycle of just like brainwashing, and you just gaslit the entire time that you're there thinking something is happening when nothing is not, And so yeah.
It's Matthew 23, really this entire chapter, which is Jesus pronouncing the woes on the Pharisees. But it's just, I think this chapter, to me, I found is such a concise and accurate summarization of, I think, groups like Shincheonji, World Mission Society, Church of God. It's so, captures the essence of what these groups are when you really, look closely and analyze how they function, how they behave, what's really at the forefront in terms of what their goals are, what really motivates them. And it's verse 25 where he says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. First clean the inside of the cup and the plate, and the outside also may be clean." So it's like that obsessive focus, which really is narcissistic at its root, of caring so passionately about what people perceive you to be, but not having any concern about what you actually are.
Yes.
And that's ultimately, it sounds like what it comes down to for Shincheonji.
Yeah. I mean, and it goes up to there are things that already been told to the congregation members that stay within the leaders' range, right? And so, regarding leaders, and there's actually recently almost 5 or 6, there was like the main tribe leaders. And the tribe, I say, to give context, is the 12 tribes that are, in Revelation and scripture. They say there needs to be 12,000 within each tribe. That's how it fulfills in Revelation. And so the 12 tribes are spread out internationally. The one in the DMV is John tribe, is what they were associated with. And, there was a handful of leaders that left from the headquarters. And to this day, I'm positive that the congregation members don't really know the reason why these people left. Like what happened, right? And the critical thinking aspect also kind of goes out the window while you're there, because you're just kind of accepting information. And so there will be, information that they know would probably challenge a lot of the congregation members, so they don't really disclose that information. The idea is like the strategy technically stops once you've joined the group, but really it doesn't. There's like the strategy kind of expands to kind of maintain you in there with controlling the information that you see and hear, your behaviors, etc. So it never truly goes away. There's always someone really with their eyes on you and making sure that there's filtered information. And so they're also really great at labeling people when they leave, right? As a betrayer, as someone who's been possessed, like this would be considered persecution. I am persecuting them actively is what they would say. There's a lady who left from there who had a rather high position in the organization before, and she's released her story after some time. And I remember them just completely bashing this woman. And when I was there, I could tell you, Jordan, I thought this woman was probably possessed. I just thought, man, like, because I didn't have any information. I didn't know what her story was. So I just thought, why would she go and start her own, like, that never happened. That's something that they made up. They make things up all the time. So it's not like shocking, but and ultimately it's really to make sure that the way you look at people who leave is a certain way, to make sure that you filter the information they say is a certain way, So.
It's all fear and shame. Like the entire motivation of everything they do is rooted in fear and shame. It's like you hear that they will demonize these people who leave, and that ultimately it's just a tool. It's a tactic to make the members who are still there to feel afraid. It's like you're almost, in a sense, making sort of a public example of them and saying, in almost an underhanded way, like, hey, this person's an evil, nasty demon. And so if you even think about joining her, just know this is what you'll be as well. And so it's just to ingrain in you fear.
It's all fear motivated, for sure. Yeah, the whole thing. And there was a time, I think, during a sermon where the leader was like, do we use fear tactics here? He goes, yeah, we do. And I thought, well, that's weird. And I was like, anyone else catch that? That's bizarre. And I'm like, I guess, there's a healthy fear of what you have, of the reverence you have towards God, right?
Right.
And then there's this understanding that your actions, obviously, because, when we go into the doctrine stuff, your actions, faith, and everything else are kind of on the same level, right? And so you're like, you think you could mess your salvation up by the little things that you do, because it's almost like judgment. They've got that authority to do so. If you don't have that approval from them, then so that kind of shatters your image of what you even thought God looked like before, right? So you just do live kind of in fear all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that really is right there is kind of capturing the essence almost of like the contrast of what the gospel really is, and what a works-based, which is the New Testament, is just constantly trying to, passionately, fervently, consistently explain this is not how it doesn't work this way, the works-based way, and the works-based, law-based, the different ways, Apostle Paul will describe it, is at its foundation is something that is rooted in fear and ultimately like a mistrust of God. You're not trusting that God is a good father who loves you. And so you're motivated by this fear that, oh, I've got to make sure I'm doing it right. I'm getting all these things done, because if I don't, he wants to get me for it. Like God is just waiting to strike us. Like that's what he wants, instead of, no, like the whole point of the New Testament is trying to explain this, this crazy sort of idea that God is actually like the father of the prodigal son, who even when the son basically spits in his face, just wants him to come back. And that's kind of the heart of God. But this group would kind of, if you would see that parable, the prodigal son, through the filter of SEJ, well, once the prodigal son leaves the father's house, that father is going to get a band of soldiers, and he's going to go out and he's going to murder him and give him what he deserves, and that's kind of the underlying difference, I think, where this group, everything they teach you about what relationship with God looks like and how you are to relate to him, it's rooted in fear, and really all the pressure is put on you that you have to make sure you're not a sinner, you're doing all the right things. And so it just comes down to I don't see any other way but that you would just have to live in a constant cycle of fear and shame and fear and shame, just this never ending sort of exhausting
Right.
existence.